Imagine two people walking into the same office on the same Monday morning. They're the same age, they have similar education, same job title, same starting salary. They even sit a few desks apart. Fast forward 10 years, one is now leading the company. The other is still doing the same work, wondering why life never changed. How can two people start in almost the exact same place and end up living completely different lives? Most people have an answer ready. It's luck. They had better connections. They were born smarter. Those explanations make us feel better because they remove the responsibility from us. But what if they're wrong? What if the biggest difference between average people and extraordinary people isn't talent at all? What if it's something much smaller, something almost invisible? I'm Usman, and these are my insights. This is a place where curiosity meets meaningful conversations. Every week, we explore powerful ideas from psychology, business, personal development, and the world's greatest thinkers. Not to chase motivation, but to understand how successful people really think and why they make the decisions they do. If you're passionate about learning, growing, and gaining insights that can transform the way you think, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Today, I want to explore one idea that completely changed the way I think about success. It's called the excellence mindset. And if you truly understand it, you may never look at your career or your life the same way again. Let's start with a simple question. Why do companies pay some people 10 times more than others? Not twice as much, not 3 times as much, sometimes 10, 20, or even 100 times more. It can't just be because they work harder. There are people working 12-hour shifts every day who struggle to pay their bills. At the same time, there are entrepreneurs, executives, and specialists who create enormous value without working around the clock. So what's the difference? Brian Tracy makes an interesting point in his book, Think Big, and today we're drawing inspiration from that idea. He argues that the marketplace rewards value more than effort. In other words, people are generally paid based on the value they create and the problems they solve, not simply the number of hours they work. Think about a heart surgeon. The operation may take only a few hours, but you're not paying for those few hours. You're paying for the years of learning, practice, and expertise that make those hours possible. The same idea applies to almost every profession. People who continuously improve their skills usually become more valuable over time, and people who become more valuable tend to create more opportunities for themselves. That brings us to one of the biggest myths about success. Most people believe excellence is something you're born with. You're either naturally gifted or you're not. But history tells a very different story. Take Toyota, for example. After World War II, it wasn't the biggest car company in the world. It didn't have unlimited resources. It couldn't outspend its competitors. So it adopted a different philosophy. Instead of looking for one massive breakthrough, it focused on making small improvements every single day. That philosophy became known as Kaizen, a Japanese approach to continuous improvement. The idea is simple. Improve one process, then another, then another. Each improvement might seem too small to matter, but over months and years, those tiny changes compound into extraordinary results. That's not just business lesson, it's a life lesson. Imagine improving just one important skill every year, not 10 skills, just one. If you're in sales, maybe it's learning to communicate better. If you're a designer, maybe it's mastering typography. If you're a creator, maybe it's becoming a better storyteller. One meaningful improvement every year doesn't sound exciting, but 5 years later, you're no longer competing with the person you used to be. You're competing with people who never improved at all. This is where average people often get stuck, not because they lack potential, but because they confuse activity with progress. Being busy isn't the same as getting better. Answering emails all day is an improvement. Attending meetings is an improvement. Scrolling through productivity videos is an improvement. Improvement happens when you deliberately build skills that increase your value. And here's where the author introduces one of the most powerful ideas. Every profession has what Brian Tracy calls critical success factors, the handful of skills that have the biggest impact on your results. The highest performers figure out what those skills are. Then they become exceptional at them. Most people do the opposite. They spend years getting slightly better at things that barely matter. Imagine trying to become a world-class chef. Would spending 6 hours a day learning photography make you a better chef? Probably not. It might be a useful hobby, but it won't move you closer to your goal. The same mistake happens in careers every day. People invest thousands of hours improving skills that have very little impact on the future they actually want. The people who move ahead ask a different question. What's the one skill that if I mastered it would change everything? That's the question average people rarely ask, and it may be the question that changes your life. There's another idea Brian Tracy talks about that I think deserves much more attention. He calls it the winning edge. At first, it sounds like something only athletes or top executives need, but it's much bigger than that. The winning edge is the small difference that separates people who seem ordinary from people who become exceptional. Notice I said small, not massive, small. Think about Olympic Games. The difference between a gold medal and finishing fourth can be less than 1 second. Yet one athlete becomes a national hero, the others are almost forgotten. The gap wasn't enormous. The reward was. Business works the same way. Imagine two restaurants sitting right next to each other. Both serve similar food, both charge similar prices, but one restaurant is just a little cleaner. The staff smiles a little more. The service is slightly faster. The food is just a little more consistent. None of those improvements are dramatic on their own, but together, they create an experience people remember. Customers return, they recommend it to friends, online reviews improve, the business grows. Years later, people look at its success and think they got lucky. They didn't. They simply became a little better in the areas that mattered most. That's what excellence really looks like. It's rarely one giant breakthrough. It's hundreds of tiny improvements that quietly build an enormous advantage. This is why I think so many people misunderstand success. We notice the promotion. We don't notice the years of preparation before it. We notice the best-selling book. We don't see the hundreds of mornings the author spent writing while everyone else was asleep. We notice the successful business. We don't see the thousands of small decisions that built it. Success is visible. Preparation usually isn't. There's also another important point. Your self-esteem grows when your ability grows. Think about that for a second. Today, we're constantly told to believe in yourself. And while confidence matters, real confidence usually comes from competence. Imagine two people walking onto a stage to give a speech. One has practiced every day for months. The other wrote their speech the night before. Who do you think feels more confident? Confidence wasn't created by positive thinking. It was created by preparation. That's true in almost every area of life. The better you become at solving problems, the more confidence you naturally build. The better you communicate, the easier conversations become. The better you manage your time, the more control you feel over your life. Confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you earn. And every new skill you master becomes another reason to trust yourself. Now, here's the question I want you to ask yourself. If someone paid you $1 million to become one of the top 10% in your profession within the next 5 years, what would you do differently starting tomorrow? Would you read more? Would you practice more? Would you find a mentor? Would you stop wasting time on things that don't matter? You already know many of the answers. Most of us do. The challenge isn't knowing. The challenge is deciding that average is no longer good enough. Brian Tracy suggests regularly asking yourself another powerful question. What is my most valuable skill? And what is my weakest important skill? That's an uncomfortable question because it forces honesty. Maybe you are creative but struggle with discipline. Maybe you're hardworking but avoid difficult conversations. Ignoring those weaknesses doesn't make them disappear. In fact, your weakest critical skill often becomes the ceiling on your future. Imagine trying to fill a bucket with water while there's a hole in the bottom. You can keep pouring more water in, but until you fix the hole, the bucket never fills. That's exactly how careers work. Many people keep working harder instead of fixing the one skill that's holding everything else back. The people who move ahead do the opposite. They identify the biggest weakness, then they attack it relentlessly. That's where extraordinary growth begins. There's one final idea from the book that stayed with me long after I finished reading it. Excellence isn't about beating other people, it's about refusing to stay the same. The person you should compare yourself to isn't the smartest person on social media. It isn't a billionaire on a podcast. It isn't the CEO with 20 years more experience than you. The only meaningful comparison is the person you were yesterday. Did you learn something new? Did you improve one important skill? Did you become a little more valuable than you were last week? Because if the answer is yes, you're already moving in the right direction. Most people overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 month, but they massively underestimate what they can accomplish in 5 years. 5 years of reading, 5 years of deliberate practice, 5 years of improving your most valuable skills, 5 years of refusing to settle for average. That version of you would be almost unrecognizable. And here's the irony. People would probably call you lucky. They'll see the success. They'll see the income. They'll see the opportunities, but they'll never see the quiet mornings, the late nights, the uncomfortable conversations, the books you read, the skills you practiced, the mistakes you learned from. Success always looks obvious in hindsight, but while you're building it, it feels incredibly ordinary. One small improvement, then another, until the day the life you have been building finally becomes visible. So maybe success isn't about chasing extraordinary moments. Maybe it's about treating ordinary days extraordinary well. Because average isn't a life sentence. It's simply the result of average choices repeated over time. And if average choices can build an average life, imagine what intentional choices can build. Watch the next video where we'll explore why 20% of your effort creates 80% of your results and how to find that 20%. Thanks for watching.